What do I mean by that? In the kind of world that we live in, illumination boundaries, so where there's a shadow and there's a sharp change in illuminance, is typically caused by shadows. It's not as if, in a random world you can imagine that the image itself, one half of it is white and the other half of it is black. And you have another image where the whole thing is white. You won't be able to synthesize that. Because it's but in the real world, if there's an object that is casting a shadow, if it casts a shadow such that in one right eye image it is half white and half black, in the left eye image it had better be close to half white and close to half black. It can't be radically different. And so this understanding of how the world works generates statistics. So not only do we have internal hypotheses about what should my biases be, right? So for example, my bias might be, Ramesh is a good honest shopkeeper, while Suresh is a dishonest shopkeeper. But on top of that, I may have hypotheses about the world itself. I might say that in Sadar Bazaar you only go if you are an experienced shopkeeper, but you can go to Sarojini Nagar if and you don't have to worry about it, because everybody there is honest, or typically they're honest. So these kinds of hypotheses are also used by us. It's not just hypotheses about an individual interaction, it's hypotheses about generally how the world works. So the claim is the world doesn't work in random ways, it works in heavily constrained ways, and therefore we can use that non-randomness from the world to constrain our hypotheses about how the world is working now. So the real transition therefore is not from learning from data to innate hypothesis, but rather how do you combine general knowledge about how the world works with particular insights about how it should work now. And once we are able to do that, we are set. Right? Because what really matters to me is fight or flee. And if I have a general idea that this is where the lions are, and when I hear something rustling in the bushes, well, I flee. On the other hand, if I know that the lions have not been camping in this part of the savannah, well, I stay. So it's through this combination of the general and the particular that a lot of the new learning schemes are coming up, rather than the old idea of hardwired versus flexible systems, or for that matter, direct versus indirect learning. It's really a question of what is generally true of the world versus what is specifically nuanced in this situation versus situations which are one-off. There are certain outlier situations where you can't do anything, right? And that's where the black swan effect comes in, is that you may have general assumptions about the world that are actually not predictive of the future. So one of the things, therefore, that should be built into your model is, when does the general model break? And we need to have that as well. And as long as that's built in, and therefore you have a probability not just of whether your current conclusion is right or not, but you need to have a probability of whether your assumption is right or not. So it's not just a problem. So unfortunately, this can lead to infinite regress, because where do you get the probability for the assumption? Especially given that you want to test it against the future and not the past. That's a very hard problem, and we don't know yet how to do that. Okay, but I'm going to stop with that, and that's the concluding sort of lecture of the day. We'll open it for discussions, and then questions. Yeah.
I just have I was just looking at what you said, looking at parallel in Piaget's theory of assimilation and accommodation, and also relevant to the conceptual change that happens in explained by several learning theories of learning.
So, of course, people have tried to model conceptual change using Bayesian accounts. It's not, so that is actually a pretty hot field right now. So, if you look at people at MIT like Josh Cannon and others, what they're saying is, so there are many possibilities of conceptual change, right? One is natural maturation. So you are just shedding one layer and putting on another. It's like a snake changing its skin. The other possibility is you are assimilating experience, but in a way that is not sort of deep, right? Which is to say, you're just incorporating a little bit of experience. So it's a little. So the best way to put it would be what's called a principles and parameters map. So which is to say, you have known that the sun goes around the earth, and then you want to flip to the earth goes around the sun. So in both cases, you have a model of a central entity and a rotating entity. All you've done is switch. So that's not a huge shift in models, right? There is conceptual change that has happened, but all you've done is relabel the models. But third possibility is you had a completely different idea. So you did not have anything going around anything, and from nothing you have bootstrapped to the earth going around the sun. How do you get that? I mean, that's the hard problem. And one answer is you need what you call a theory generation device. So you need not just a single theory with parameters, but you need a way to systematically generate theories. And once the data comes in, you fit the best theory out of the various theories to the data. So it's not just, so it's sort of a meta Karl Popper, right? So think about it this way, that instead of just falsifying one theory from the data, you have a family of theories and you pick one of those. So that's really, I think, where a lot of this conceptual change literature is going.
So actually, recently I came to know about activities connected to this innate versus learn discussion. So I don't know whether it is true or not, but I read that there are cases where suddenly some people, a person start talking in some other language due to accident or something, like he doesn't know about it, he never saw people in that language. Okay, so then you say that there is an innate knowledge, and then you build upon the knowledge that is learned knowledge. So it seems, if it is true, that the innate knowledge is much more sophisticated than what you say.
That's definitely one argument, right? So the argument, or rather the case study was, he has heard of people who, because of some accident, let's say, are suddenly speaking a language that they had never heard. Okay? And therefore, isn't that an argument for more sophistication in the innate knowledge bucket than in the acquired knowledge bucket? So the answer to that is, in some cases maybe people have done it, but let's put it this way, that most of us, without exposure to a language, will not learn it. So the overwhelming mass of evidence is that experience is crucial. Now, whether that experience is crucial just by providing parameters to your system. So all you need to know is it's a subject, verb, object language rather than subject, object, verb language. As soon as you know that parameters shift, you get everything else. That's one possibility. Another possibility is you're learning the word ordering directly from the data. So you already have this idea that there must be a subject, there must be a verb, and there must be an object. You're learning both the subject, verb, object principle and the parameter from the data. So that's true bootstrapping. This one-off things are not evidence for anything, unfortunately, right? So it only tells you that there's something curious going on. But if you have lots, a better experimental design would be if you take children who are the most able to know languages quickly, how quickly do they bootstrap new rules? And